Hello, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon session. Welcome to the afternoon. We're past halfway. We've nearly done MWC Vegas. Past halfway. It's all good. So welcome to the afternoon session. We're talking about Open Gateway. My name is Mark Cornell. I work for the GSMA. I'm the technical director for Open Gateway. Today I got told I got a promotion. I'm actually now a sheepdog. I'm a sheepdog. I got to bring everyone together. So that's my job. Bring everyone together in this whole ecosystem. It's really exciting actually. It's been a great journey I think over the past year and a half, and we've got further to go. I think it's accelerating, and we'll definitely get there. So we've heard this morning a lot about why we want to do it, what's the value, what's going on, and now this afternoon we're going to be a lot more hands-on, a lot more interactive, I hope, and we're going to show things about what we're actually doing. So things are actually taking place, how to use Open Gateway, how to do code, how to do APIs. So a lot more of an interactive session this afternoon. So what we're going to do is we've got 3 presentations, and then after each of the presentations there'll be a chance for a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, burning questions for the guys, just ask away. If not, I'll be asking and pointing people in the audience and saying, what's your questions? So the first one up is Telefónica's Developer Hub, and we'll invite Ricardo and Oscar up onto the stage on your presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. So for those of you who didn't attend the session in the morning, I'm Oscar Loura. I work at Telefónica Open Gateway Global Team. I'm based in Madrid. 15 years experience in Telefónica, 6 months experience in Open Gateway, and it has been as intense as the previous 14 years. So great things are being done here. And I mean, this is a great opportunity for us to share what we are doing and how we want to engage with developers. We are fully conscious that telco operators are not engaging with developers as we should, and we want to fix that, all right? And that's why we are developing different programs and in order to engage more deeply and more closely with you. So before I start, back in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, so 6 months ago, we launched an initiative that is called Early Adopters Program, because we were announcing Open Gateway, we were announcing the APIs, but in fact there were theoretical APIs, okay, because they were based on what we knew and what we thought could be interesting for the developer ecosystem. But we perfectly understood that we needed to talk to developers and understand what they think about these APIs, if the initial design of these APIs is the one they need, if they are asking for additional APIs that we weren't considering initially. And as such, we launched an initiative that was called Early Adopters Program. This initiative was a huge success. We received hundreds of applications from different developers who were telling us their use cases they were interested in, how they would use our APIs. It was really interesting, but the response was so overwhelming that we were not sized in order to qualify each of these leads. So we did as best as we could, and now we have processed all these leads, of course, but now we thought we need to go one step further and evolve the program, the Early Adopters Program, and that's why we are going to, I'm announcing here what we're going to launch later this year, which is the Developer Hub, and that is, which is basically an enhanced and a wider version of our Early Adopters Program. So as I said, why from an operator's point of view, why do we want to do this? First of all, we want to mobilize the developer ecosystem. We want the developer ecosystem to know what we are doing, to understand the capabilities, and that is something we are doing through this Early Adopters Program. Second, we want to discover new use cases with you. We are developing APIs, but API is just a technical naming. We want to speak about use cases. That is what really moves the market. So use cases that are relying on APIs, and we want to understand which use cases are interesting for you. And this is something we got great feedback from developers. We discovered things that we didn't even imagine, use cases in industries that we didn't even think of, so it was extremely enriching. And for those use cases that we qualify as the most potential ones or most interesting ones, then we want to run POCs with developers using also our channel partners. And finally, we want to test the end-to-end process because we haven't launched yet commercially. We are in the process of doing so, as it was discussed this morning. But before we do so, we need to understand the ecosystem. We need to understand the value that we're bringing to developers. We need to understand the use cases, and we also need to test the end-to-end process. So, and what's in for the developer? So what are you getting in return? Well, you're going to test. We want you to test. We want you to give you access to these APIs. We want you to test commercial APIs, but we also want you to test pre-commercial APIs. We want you to tell us if we are focusing them correctly, if we need to change something, if you're missing anything. All this feedback we are bringing it into our house. We are also sharing it into Camara, which is the place where APIs are standardized. Because remember, we are talking about standard APIs, which are the same across all telco operators. So whatever change we implement in an API is something that we need to standardize and bring to Camara for approval. Okay. And you will also be able to test before launching. I mean, your feedback is so valuable for us. And you will also be able to test if you're able to incorporate new features, new experiences in your applications. You can test those applications with your customers, see if it's working or not, and give feedback to us. So we want to engage with you more deeply. We want to understand exactly what is interesting and important for you, and we want to define APIs and services accordingly. And of course, you need tools in order to do that. So developers will of course get a set of tools. So you will get swaggers in order to have full information about APIs. You'll have a full set of documentation. You will have specific, very deep dive specifications of the different APIs. You will get white papers in order to understand technical and commercial white papers as well. There will be a sandbox. We discussed this morning about sandbox. We are going to provide a sandbox as well because you need to test. That is clear. Our sandbox is allowing you to test our APIs on Telefónica's network, but ideally, at least from the technical point of view, if it works on Telefónica network, it will work everywhere. Then, of course, each country will have its legal or regulatory restrictions. That is something that, of course, each operator is taking care of. But from the technical point of view, you will be able to test these APIs in a sandbox. And finally, and this is something that is work in progress, we are working on certifications. We want you to be certified. We want you to be specialists on our services and on our APIs. And that's why we are building certifications both for the technical track, but also for the commercial track. And at the end, as I said in the morning, we are relying heavily on our channel partners to make this happen. So once we detect a use case that is very interesting, we talk to the developer, hey, this is really interesting, we want to go through a POC with you. We are also engaging with our channel partners such as Microsoft, with whom we are collaborating very closely in order to make this happen. So basically we choose an API, we choose a use case, and we talk to Microsoft, we talk with the customer, we integrate together, and we make a test. And this is basically what we're doing right now. And I want to introduce Ricardo from Microsoft, who's going to give you examples of 2 POCs that where we are collaborating together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Ricardo Villarreal. I'm a product manager in Azure for Operators. Azure for Operators is a group within Azure that helps telco operators to build their networks on the cloud. Not the IT, but we are focused on the networks to be built on the cloud. But the product that we are building in my team is called Azure Programmable Connectivity, and it's basically our response to Open Gateway and Camara. So as Oscar mentioned, I'm going to be talking about 2 use cases, 2 POCs that we have been working on. But before we go into that, this is going to be just a bit repetitive for those of you that were in the earlier sessions, but not everyone was there, so I just thought it was important to explain a little bit the relationship that we have with Telefónica and the operators. So basically, this is Azure Programmable Connectivity, the box that we have in the middle. The idea is we want to make it easier for developers to access the network APIs. So at the bottom, there's the operators. Obviously, their objective is to monetize their network capabilities. And then at the top, it's I said the operators at the bottom. Then the developers, they want to infuse all of these capabilities into their applications in an easy way. So basically the box that is in the middle, I'm not going to go into detail right now, but it's basically doing two things. One is it unifies, and the second one is it abstracts. It unifies because with one interface, you can access the different APIs from the different operators. And then the second one is it abstracts because it presents that interface with the Azure experience. So you go to the Azure portal, and that's how you can consume the APIs, the abstraction and the unification. With that said, so I'm going to talk about two use cases, real use cases that we've been working on. So the first one is with a developer in Spain called a Turing Challenge. What they do is they are developing, well, they do many things, but the one solution we are working with them is a solution to inspect the runways in the airports. So what they do it with drones. So these drones, they are flying around the runways, and they are doing video analytics on the airport, and they are looking for danger, they're looking for debris, they're looking for all of these things. So there are two things. What they are using is quality on demand. Obviously, the connectivity is so important because the airport is open. They believe public network, cellular network, is a good connectivity for this, and so they are connected to the public network. But the connectivity is so important. So they are using the quality on demand API from Telefonica, and to basically to prioritize the communication. And there are two things that are very important. One is you don't want to lose connectivity to the drone, because if something happens to the drone, it's going to be even more danger, right? It's trying to look for danger, and you don't want the drone to become danger in to the airplanes. So it's crucial that you don't lose that connectivity. But the second one is latency, and a good connectivity is important for the video that is being transmitted, because the identification of debris, the identification of danger is happening in real time. So quality on demand prioritizes the connectivity. And there are two key things that are happening as a result of that. One is the safety is enhanced. It's enhanced because there are no people looking for this debris. You can send a device to look for it. And also because the runways are cleaner, right, from danger. And the second thing is costs are reduced in this case also. It's cheaper to send a drone to look for this than to have people looking for this. I'm going to go to a second one. So a second one is Matsuko. They've been pretty active because they are working with many operators. I know they have a presence here. You can go and see the demo at their booth. And basically what they do, for those of you that don't know them yet, they specialize in streaming people as 3D holograms. So part of their secret sauce is the creation of the hologram with one telephone. So just one camera, you can create a hologram of you. But then there is a solution for these holograms of people in 3D to communicate. This one to many and many to many. And then they have a solution that people really feel like they are talking to the others in a hologram. So they are also using the quality on demand API from Telefonica. That's the one they've been using. And basically, this is obviously to deliver a smooth and a natural movement of the hologram. I mean, if you experience video with problems, it's bad, but if you experience a hologram with problems, it's not as nice. You are trying to make a connection to the person, so it has to be crystal clear. So that's why connectivity is so important for them. So the example here, the objective, what was attained, is the latency is reduced. So better experience, and secondly, the bandwidth is increased. So this quality on demand, by the way, this works better when there is congestion in the network. And in this case, this is when they use it. They don't have to use it all the time, so they only use it when it's needed, when they detect congestion in the network. With that, that was the second use case. I don't know if we have questions. I remember there's time for questions.
So any questions from the room? And before we do, Matsuko are just behind you. They're in the 5GFF booth, and they've got a really good hologram demo thing. Any questions?
Yeah. My question is on the turning agile, the drone, the quality on demand. is that for like computer vision, or is it for just like sending a feed of the video? Like, are these things processing like autonomously using the network?
It is for both. It's for the streaming, that so you don't lose packets on the streaming that is happening in real time,
Mm-hmm.
and also for controlling the drone. In that case, actually, quality on demand, what we have found, helps in two cases. One is where the experience is going to be degraded because if you don't have great connectivity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not necessarily life or death.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you're going to have a better experience. And the second one is when it is crucial, that it's not about the experience, but you want to make sure that the connectivity is not lost. In this example, it's actually an intersection of both.
Mm.
One example is streaming of an event. That one falls more on the crucial. I mean, there are these companies that are contracted to do streaming of events,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't mind paying whatever money they have to pay so they don't lose connection because they were contracted for that. So sometimes it's about the crucial, you don't lose connection,
Mm.
and other times it's because you want to better the experience.
Great. That's very interesting. And then it's you're achieving that by computing at the edge, or how does the quality on demand, like what is that API actually doing?
Well, that's the API, that's the magic from Telefonica, and that's the magic from the operators. This is, they prioritize traffic at the run
Okay.
level. So at the run, the traffic is prioritized, and the evolution of that is going to be network slicing via APIs as well. But that is what's happening, yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Danielle Royston, and I have a more fundamental question about how the developers are interacting with the APIs. In one of your slides, you had the abstraction from Azure for Operators, and then underneath the operators. As a developer using one of these APIs, do I have to know ahead of time which operator network I want to use? And so, let's say in a country where the endpoint or whatever I'm using is not, I don't know. I have to send it 3 times if there's 3 operators. Like test if it's AT&T, then do Verizon. Oh wait, it was a T-Mobile network or endpoint. And so is it 3 API calls, or like Azure's abstracting it away and it figures out it's Open Gateway and it routes it to the right network?
Yeah, so the short answer is one API call, and we figure out to what operator you are going. So that's part of the aggregation we are doing. You can always also use only with one operator. If you are an enterprise customer, you're only working with Telefonica, maybe it makes sense that you go through a direct channel to them, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to use. But if you're going to be working with many operators, maybe you want to use an aggregator. And when you are using an aggregator like our solution, APC, yes, what we do is we know, we have a gateway that knows, you just make the call into the gateway, and then we know where the end device is.
And so is the
Telefonica
monetization layer at the Azure level, where you guys are metering the API usage and then charging the enterprise developer, or
They are-
I get a bill from
Yeah.
Telefonica, a bill from
in our solution, you get a bill from Azure, but it shows how many API calls were made with Telefonica, how many with Vodafone, how many with whatever other
Yeah.
operator.
Cool. Sweet, that was it. Who's next? Anybody else?
Any more questions? I've got one question for Telefonica. So, question for Telefonica. We'll answer. We talked about sandboxes. Is your overall view a complete end-to-end experience, or is it a stubbed experience?
Well, at the beginning will be a limited experience, and then of course we can expand it and go to more real use cases where you can even simulate the sandbox in an environment with a specific hyperscaler to test the end-to-end experience. But initially we will have limited experiences, and that we will be evolving in the future. And finally, one question.
It was a quick question about commercials and an actual process. So, for example, to be involved in the sandbox, is there a transparent commercial cost to doing so? Is there an application form to fill out? How practically does it work?
Well, access to the developer hub is free, and you will be able to access the resources and the sandboxes for free. If you want to move to commercial, then of course we will have to discuss about the commercials. But access to all the technical stuff is going to be fully free. The only thing is that if we want to go one step further and go for a POC, of course we will not be able to grant POCs for everyone that is interested. But even in the case of POCs, depending on the use case and on the reference, then we can decide whether or not it can be a paid POC or not.
Really cool, thanks.
So registration process for the developer hub is open. So if you're interested in testing our APIs in Telefónica's footprint, please feel free to join and apply for the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Oscar. If anyone wants to take a photo of that, please do so. So next one we've got Vasu and the APIs in depth. I'd like to welcome Vasu to the stage.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Vasu, I'm from Nokia. So I'm the product line manager for the network as code solution that we have released in the last 2 days. And the booth here is actually demonstrating the product. Before I talk about the product and solution and so on, so I would talk about the approach that we have taken, as well as in terms of what is the complexity that we are actually trying to hide from application developers. Right? So before we talk about what are the APIs that we are looking at and how they work, the most important thing for us to understand is to be looking at it from an outside-in perspective, right? We are looking at it from a developer perspective, so therefore it's important to understand what kind of requirements and what kind of use cases are going to actually be in the real world, right? Now, based on the kind of analysis that we have done and discussions that we had, so we categorized broadly into these kind of verticals. If you look at the verticals, it could be Industry 4.0 kind of use cases, manufacturing, mining, power, transportation and logistics with autonomous assisted driving, fleet management, connected cars, sports and entertainment in the kind of B2C kind of scenarios where we have consumer immersive experiences for consumers with AR, VR kind of application, healthcare, public safety, and then security, right? Now, these kind of verticals and use cases are coming out with different kinds of requirements that we actually require from the network. Many of these requirements are coming from the network, but it could also come from different parts of the ecosystem of what an operator has, right? So if you look at the kinds of requirements that we have from the network, one is in terms of dynamic usage of network resources. That means application developers might need bandwidth on demand. They may even require a specialized network on demand. That means on a public 5G network, they should be able to get a network slice orchestrated and access to the network slice on demand. We talk about real-time connectivity, low latency kind of applications. That means all application needs are not the same. Some applications have real-time requirements in terms of what should be the application performance. Network insights, right? This is very much important. As of today, not yet covered in the camera context, but this is going to be very important as we go along in terms of what is the kind of network performance that an application is perceiving now. For example, in terms of network congestion, and then what can be the prediction that can actually happen in terms of what's going to happen so that applications can actually dynamically adapt to these kind of changing circumstances. We speak about quality on demand. It also can mean that the quality that is actually, nothing is actually guaranteed on a network. So the quality that's actually provided on demand to application can actually deteriorate. That means there could be changes in the conditions of quality, in which case the applications may have to react to these changes that's actually going to happen on the network. Applications requiring distributed computing. That means application performance very much closer to where the application is getting consumed on towards the edge networks. Specialized application requirements ability to manage the application behavior based on the device characteristics, identity authentication and authorization basically required for security. So these kind of use cases drive the requirements from networks, right? And that's actually driving in terms of what kind of APIs we are actually bringing into the market, right? Starting from, so you can broadly classify APIs into network-oriented APIs. That means APIs that deeply interact with the network, allowing applications to become network aware. These APIs are deeper in the sense that application developers will not be able to understand how these APIs actually work and how these APIs are actually delivered from the network. What they need is a very high level of simplification and abstraction, together with capabilities like SDKs that will help them to consume these network capabilities in a very smooth and seamless manner. So quality on demand, device location, device status, edge application, which is for edge application performance, and home devices, QoD, which is for fixed wireline kind of network. So these kind of APIs are mainly driving from the network-oriented perspective, while we have other set of APIs which are mainly from a device and a user-oriented approach, which is mainly used for identification of devices and users, authentication, authorization kind of use cases and scenarios. Now, what does it mean? So APIs are not new in the industry. APIs have existed. 5G architecture itself is based on service-based architecture, where network functions are exposing APIs, interacting with other network functions using APIs. So what is it that's actually going to be different this time, and why is it that's going to be successful this time? If app developers are going to be exposed to APIs which are network APIs, they have to go through a very difficult life cycle, meaning they have to have a very good understanding in terms of network concepts, terminologies that are involved, specifications which are very deep into the network, understanding of flows, and then how these which kind of APIs and specifications have to be used for what kind of use cases. And that's where the service APIs are bringing the kind of abstraction which actually makes it very seamless for app developers to consume these APIs. That means they do not have to understand the other life cycle that we would have gone through in order to make these APIs the simplified, make these APIs in the simplified form they are actually appearing. If you look at one example, this is a live example as to how we build APIs based on our experience in Nokia. When we actually look at the life cycle, it's quite complex, starting from API specifications, getting into parameters and understanding and doing this. This takes a lot of effort that goes behind in the simplification that we have actually achieved, right? Now, if this needs to be done by systems which are unaware of how networks work, it's going to be drastically different and drastically difficult, and probably that's where developers are going to not use the APIs that are getting exposed from the network. Now, in terms of once we have these kind of APIs, that's not the end goal. The end goal is actually when the developers can actually have the end-to-end life cycle of these APIs, starting from the developer experience, where we are talking about SDKs, which are native. We talk about network as code in the Nokia context. The main reason being that what developers are used to is code, right? So they are mainly talking about software applications, software code, integrated development toolkits, and so on. So they are not even to a large extent, they may not even be interested in talking about APIs, multiple APIs, significant levels of APIs as well. So they may be interested in getting developer kind of toolkits, which actually makes it easier for them to program in the kind of application development environment that they are very comfortable with. Of course, we talk about developer experience and SDKs, but there are three other aspects which are also very important. One is the security. Of course, when we are talking about exposing APIs and exposing network capabilities to third-party developers, application developers, who has access to what kind of network capabilities becomes very critical. So if we do not have the stitched in terms of identity, security in terms of authentication, authorization, and in the kind of B2B and B2C kind of scenarios where a consent is also probably required, that becomes a very important loophole, which actually makes it more difficult for people to actually trust the system. So security is one key aspect in terms of how these APIs can actually become actually get into a real world production kind of a use case. We talk about analytics and finally the monetization. So the monetization is about, again, not monetizing in terms of subscription models, which are the traditional ways in which operators have actually monetized, but each of these APIs have to be monetized for different stakeholders and different ecosystem participants in such a way that everybody is compensated for the kind of value that for the kind of value they bring into the ecosystem. So on top of the open APIs, we would look at developer experience, SDKs, security, analytics, and monetization as key fundamental blocks to actually translate what we talk in terms of theoretical APIs and open APIs to actually get into a kind of a commercial solution. So that's from my side. I think if you have any questions, open to it.
Hi there. Is this on? Hi. Are there APIs existing now where I, as a developer, can control where the UPF terminates directly into AWS, for example?
Right. So that's actually that's part of the Edge application API, the Edge Cloud, which actually provides three kinds of capabilities. One in terms of where applications and devices to which edge they can actually connect to get the most optimized application performance. Second, application ecosystem to determine where the applications should actually be deployed, which actually is closest to where the consumption is going to happen. Third, traffic policy and traffic routing, so that the right network resources and the right cloud resources are actually used to deliver the experience.
So if I'm developing specifically for AWS, then I just set it up as part of my profile, I guess, to say, okay, I want my traffic to ultimately terminate out of the UPF into my Azure VNet or my AWS instance as part of my setup. And then you'll dynamically provision the UPF within my domain, not the telco domain?
Right, right. Of course, I think as an application developer, you need to indicate the intent, what you need, but not actually be hard coded and hard coupled with either AWS or GCP or any other cloud computing platform and so on. So that's where the APIs will provide you the discovery part, where you can actually discover what is available where, and then decide in terms of where the application should be deployed in terms of the ecosystem that is actually pre-configured and made available to the application ecosystem. And then comes the second part, which is in terms of talking about the intent, and then the network or the aggregator platform in between that should determine as to where the UPF should be instantiated, how the UPF should be instantiated, and how the traffic policy should actually be configured. Application developers, to a large extent, should be abstracted from the concept of even a UPF, right? So an application developer should not even know that there's something like an UPF that actually exists, because then you're again bringing the application developers back to network terminologies and network resources and so on.
So who decides the architecture then? Because there's a lot of regulatory controls around data privacy in certain industries like water utilities in Australia. Right? So when it comes to data sovereignty and regulatory compliance, who decides?
I think for every API, we would look at what is the kind of information that we are actually transacting in terms of both security as well as the PII kind of information. And I think from a camera perspective as well, we look at the PII kind of definition for API by API, and the authentication authorization mechanisms would be put in place in accordance with what kind of information is being transacted. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vasu. Thank you for your presentation. Next one, Manesh.
Hey everyone. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Mahesh. I'm a part of network planning organization within Verizon. Here to talk about one of my favorite topics, how to ensure the network APIs are actually developer friendly. Building network APIs, it's not something new for telcos. We have been doing it for a long time now. The difference is that mostly it would be a top-down approach of identifying a problem statement first, then creating a solution and designing API spec which fits into that specific solution. So the applicability of the APIs would be very narrow, very specific to that solution only. Now we are kind of venturing into a more exciting, adventurous space where it's going to be very high-level intent-based APIs where even telcos wouldn't be able to know how those APIs will be, where they'll be used, how they'll be used. So again, very exciting place. And as part of this phase, a major focus is on managing developer experience. That's something that I'm going to talk about more for the rest of the slides. Okay. As part of ensuring there's good developer experience, there are a few key guiding principles that we as Verizon are looking at as part of developing any new API. Starting with, they are very high-level intent-based. Second one being that any developer who has absolutely no networking background should be able to use it without having to go through extensive documentation. That's goal number 2. And third one is standardized open API specs. So it's not just about Verizon creating API and putting it out. It's about anyone who's interested to build out that capability can reuse the same API standards as such. Again, from an intent-based perspective, as I mentioned earlier, like it was always a top-down approach, figuring out what is a problem statement that we are going to solve, then build out APIs very specifically for it. So again, makes the APIs, scope of the APIs, where they can be used very narrow. Now we are looking at a more bottom-up approach. We are looking at all the data that's available in our network, what kind of capabilities that the network has, and related to some of the intents that the developers might use, and creating APIs specific to those intents. I've listed a few intents here. Quality on demand is always very popular, discussed, showcased in multiple use cases. Edge discovery service, very specifically to identify the most optimal mobile edge computing platform. Verizon has had this available for almost 2 years now. Also, there's a number of them listed here. Again, the applicability of it is so broad that it can be put across for location-aware services, user validation, authorization. How it can be applied is endless, as we see. This is only a few set of examples. Again, we very confident that the broader developer community to whom we are enabling these APIs will be able to use this to build innovative solutions on top of it. Okay, I'm taking a specific example. This is a workshop more developer focused. So I'm taking a very specific example of edge discovery service, one of the intent that Verizon addressed quite early on. The spec was created as part of 5G FF. Again, Verizon is one of the founding members of it. It addresses the specific intent of developers on where to deploy their application, which MEC site should they deploy it in, as well as help the end users using the application connect to the most optimal MEC site at any point of time. There's mobility use cases, it could change. This set of API spec addresses all of it. Again, from a developer perspective, again, there's a lot of focus on making it user-friendly. No documentation, just see the spec. They should be able to just feel comfortable to try it out. So going into a closer look of the edge discovery API spec itself, I'll just highlight a few things. Not all of it would be visible. So intent-based, the developer who actually know their application the best can convey their intents to us in terms of what is the most optimal latency for their application so that the end users will have the best experience. So they will define all of that as part of a service profile, and the same data will be used as part of a discovery call. So this is where a UV specifically is trying to access a MEC hosted application, and based on the latency requirements of the application, we'll map it to the most optimal MEC site. one more example of how much focus is there. This is an example of QoD spec from Camera. If you see on release number 8, we had certain inputs expected from the developer, like UVID. UV is something that all of us in the telco world have got so comfortable with. User equipment, we don't even think twice about it. So it made its way to the API spec as well, which is meant for broader developer community. Similarly, one more example is MSISGN. All of us here might be comfortable, but it's for the broader reach. In the latest version of QoD, it's UVID is replaced to device. MSISGN has been replaced with phone number. Again, this is a continuous process looking to improve, make it easy to use. The ecosystem. So from putting ourselves from a developer perspective, the key things that a developer would want is that their application is able to have the maximum number of users possible, like global reach, and the users of it ensure that they have the best experience, no matter what kind of connectivity they are using to use the app itself. So with that in mind, if it's just if Verizon or a few telcos build all these cool intent-based APIs, which is easy to use, there's still relatively less motivation for the developer community to adopt it, put effort to integrate with it, because it doesn't really cover all the wide range of users that they really want to capture. That's where the ecosystem has come together. Like this is the focus of a big focus of the event. The last 2 days as well. How 5GFF, which Verizon again is one of the founding members, started in 2020. One of the agenda was to create standard APIs which can be used across the carriers. Now, again, continuing that, taking that further with Camera, focus on developer-friendly intent-based APIs, and a result of GSMA collaborating. GSMA Open Gateway collaborating with Linux Foundation. So it's an API spec which is available for everyone to see on GitHub. So anyone can log in, provide their feedback, all of that. Okay, going further. Next steps about this. Yeah, we are creating this nice intent-based developer-friendly APIs. What's more to this? One of the key areas that we are looking to see gain more traction is actually engaging developers at the time of creating the API spec. It's great that we try and put ourselves in the developer shoe, we create the intent-based APIs, then we ask our developer community to engage with us, try it out, give us feedback. It would be really great if we actually are able to engage them at the time of creation of the API itself, live feedback. Again, like Camera being open source, anyone can access it. That's a great place for developers to actually come in and give live feedback. You can have a great influence on how these APIs are getting created. 5GFF has a similar MAP, a MEC accession program, where we have identified close ISVs who want to partner and share their feedback on an ongoing basis. So that's one big focus area. And the other one is API aggregation platforms. Again, I think there's a lot of talk already covered as part of it. We heard from the Azure team, making it easy. Like, we don't want developers. There are going to be multiple go-to-market strategy for these APIs. We as Verizon telcos will have different marketplaces hosted by us for the developers to come and try these APIs. But also there'll be aggregate platforms where all the developer APIs will be accessible via one common API gateway. That's a great benefit. And on top of it, again, there's a lot of value add the aggregator platforms can bring in. That's a key role. I would love to see that taken even further. Like the best APIs would be where the developers don't have to explicitly invoke it. Bake the APIs into cloud native tools where all the magic is happening behind the scene without even them actually calling it. Okay, so that's the slides that I wanted to cover. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Here you go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So is Verizon enabling right now? Do we have the implementation of the spec? So can I come back and interact, work with Verizon?
So one of the demo that we are showcasing right here is Matsuko, a transatlantic 3 operator holograph-based web conferencing, and they have actually taken advantage of the Edge Discovery Service APIs.
Okay. And you have figured out all of the API monetization and everything else? Like, is it still in works?
So again, some of these APIs we see as enablers. For example, Edge Discovery Service is an enabler for Mac. It's not something that we would look at monetizing. It's there to benefit application developers who are looking to host apps on the Mac, and the people who are trying to access it. There are other APIs which definitely QoD, network slicing maybe in future, where there would be APIs which will be monetized. The full strategy, I don't think I'm the right person to talk about it. Yeah, there are ongoing discussions.
But the location services is available right now. I know yesterday I caught some of your presentation that looks like Nokia has the location services, that network as a core, right? So they have it. Do you have it available?
Yes.
Okay.
Location-based services, we have multiple solutions from Verizon.
Okay.
We are looking to see how we can make it as a camera standard. Right now, it's not following the same standard. It's something existing, so that's something that's ongoing.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more question.
Hi, I'm Danielle Royston. Just a quick question on how you are pulling developers to start using the APIs. Are you guys going to enterprise customers where you already have relationships and kind of selling it to them? Or are you seeing adoption like just developers wandering into the Verizon website, seeing how easy it is to use, and they just start using it? Like, what do you guys see?
Very good question. That's actually one of our focus areas. Right now, it's based on partnerships that we already have, enterprise partnership, the ISV partnerships that we already have, and again, thanks to collaboration, right? Like Verizon has contact with specific ISVs, same with each of the partner APIs that partner telcos that we work with. Also, this is an area which needs more attention. We are here, we want to go to more conferences to talk about the exact same thing to get more developers to engage.
Any more questions? No, nothing? I'll come up back over here. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. So thank you, Manish. Thank you, everybody who has been here today. Thank you for all the speakers as well. I think we've had a really full day. We do have another announcement, and we're waiting for Alex Sinclair, CTO of GSMA, to arrive. So we finished a couple of minutes early. Is there any more general questions around Open Gateway, about how we're doing it, and anything around that? And again, we haven't got any, so I'll tell you a little bit. So I think what makes Open Gateway different, and a thing that it sets it apart, and it's stuff we've already talked about for most of today, is around, well, why is it different? Why is it going to succeed this time? And if there was one word, it would be commitment. I think it would be the commitment that we've now got from those 62% and increasing number of connections across the market and across the world. So we've got global presence, anything from the States through to Europe, across Southern Hemisphere, Far East, and they're all getting involved, and it's all coming out. And we've got penetration in market as well. So we're running a series of market champion activities where we're bringing together the operators, all the operators in the market, so that in one geographic area, one country, you can then use the Open Gateway APIs. And that's coming together now with a view to bringing live services by the end of the year, and then looking next year for some fantastic demonstrations in Barcelona. So that's really where we're heading. And I think it's that commitment and the MOU and the signing of that is what's setting this apart. Now, the other part, I think, is the maturity of the API business. So we're starting to see that mature. And this is filling. So we're starting to see that mature. And we're building in. So some people have talked a little bit around federation. We've talked about federation. We've talked about using Azure, of AWS, of other integrators. And what's built in is actually built into the way that Open Gateway works is the federation, which means that it does give the developer the chance that they can start off and just go to a single operator in a network and then be able to get access to all the subscribers. So I think the question we had earlier on was around, do I need to know which operator you're on? No, I don't care what operator you're on. I don't care where you are in the world. It will work. And that's, I think, the whole point. Now, at that point, I think I'm going to hand over to Henry. I'll hand over to Henry for an exciting announcement. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Me again. Thank you very much for staying around. We're getting towards the end bit, but a little bit of a surprise. And yes, there's more, as they say. So we're going to launch a Open Gateway Challenge with one of our very coveted GLOMO awards. What does that mean? We want to see developers actually look at how to use the Kamara-based APIs in the best way, create solutions, and provide that feedback to us either through a presentation or through a demonstration. The GSMA will stand up a test bed so people can actually test the APIs. But this challenge is going to be voted on, and an award will be given in Barcelona, which will mean that the developer gets a free trip to Spain, Barcelona, and the Mobile World Congress 2024. So we will actually be sending the details out later on this week. We're expecting to find out more during that time, but we want entries in by November 16, 2023. That's very American. 16th of November 2023 is very English. Please take a scan of this. It's sponsored by Nokia as well. They've set out a challenge, some ideas that they would like to see. We've also set out some challenges and ideas, and you can see them through this website. So I'm going to look for Lucy to see if I've done everything that I need to do. But lastly, I would actually say thank you very much. And just like magic, my CTO comes and arrives to close the event. I've done the GLOMO bit.
You've done it?
Yep.
Oh.
The efficiency of me. Would you like to say some closing words as you come over here?
Well, first of all, can I point out I'm not late? Just
no, everyone's.
I wouldn't do that to you. Really, if Henry's already done the announcement of the Global Challenge, which I would encourage all of you to get the word out so that people will take part. Don't forget the date. I think it's the 16th of November is the last date to apply. But if we've already done that, then the only thing that remains really is to thank you all for coming, to thank all the speakers, and I hope to see you again in Barcelona. So thank you very much indeed.